easiest mistakes to make as an RVer is buying into every gadget, membership, or product that's marketed as a must-have. We've seen it all. From pricey gear that sits unused, to memberships that only make sense for full-timers, to so-called hacks that just don't work in real life. In today's video, we're cutting through the noise. We'll talk about what's not worth your money, and more importantly, we'll share the things we think actually are worth it. The items that go beyond the basics and truly make RV life better.
The first product we're going to talk about here is one that I think is a really good example of kind of the overall point of this entire video, which I'm going to get to here in just a minute. But before I do that, let's get into what this product is and what it does. So, as many of you probably already know, as YouTube content creators, brands reach out to us all the time peddling different products. Some of them are really good, some of them are maybe not so good. And I think this first one that we're going to talk about falls a little bit towards that not so good part. So what we're looking at here is a product called the Airlock 1. And this thing is just simply an air purifier that goes directly inside of your RV's air conditioner. And basically what happens here is the air passes over this little gadget. It produces ions that attach themselves to all of the contaminants and just helps remove all of the nastiness from the air. Now, I'm not saying that this product doesn't work. My real issue with this is, number one, how it actually works inside of your RV's air conditioner and how you have to hook this thing up. So first of all, like I said, this thing only works when it's got air passing over it. So anytime your air conditioner fan is not running, this thing's not doing anything for you. And for most of us, there are going to be significant parts of the year when that fan's not going to be operating. And so that means that this thing is just totally useless during those times. But the bigger issue that I have with this thing is where you actually have to hook it up. So it's got to have power. It's got to have 120 volt AC power. And the only way to really get that up inside of the air conditioner is to connect it into your control box for your air conditioner. And that can be an issue because a lot of AC manufacturers don't want you inside of that control box at all. So it could possibly void your warranty, especially if you're up there, don't really know what you're doing, and you hook it up incorrectly. So that's my biggest issue with this, is getting into that control box could void the warranty for your air conditioner unit. And so this is not a product that I would really recommend to anyone. And I'm not saying it's a terrible product to use, but again, I am using it as an example for basically the point of this entire video, which is to really understand what these products do and how they can affect other aspects of your RV, whether that be how does it affect or put stress on other components in your RV, or what does this thing do to your RV warranty. These are some things that a lot of people just don't think about when they see these types of products. Initially, it may sound great, but when you really start digging into it and seeing how it affects the rest of your RV, the different components, your warranty, all of those different things, it may not be worth it in the long run. Now, I don't want to just diss this product without offering an alternative solution on this thing. So we're going to come back to this later in the video to show you some different options.
RV toilet paper. I know you have seen a discussion about this, or you have friends or family members with really strong opinions. So a lot of people say you have to use RV specific toilet paper in your RV. No, you don't. We, for the last couple years, have been using Charmin. 2-ply Charmin, it's nice to use. So when we first started out, we didn't buy the RV specific, but we did buy the Scott 1000, and we used that for several years because we thought, oh, we've got to use it, you know, otherwise our tanks are going to get clogged and we're going to have issues. Well, I'll just let you know, if you don't already, 1-ply toilet paper is garbage. So Charmin, I only have to use a couple of sheets. Scott 1000, you got to use like 10 feet of it for the equivalent. So really, you're spending a lot of money because you're having to use extra. It's not soft, it's not comfortable, and you just don't need to. So the big thing is, with the RV toilet, because it's not a regular septic system, it's a holding tank, use a ton of water. Use more water than you think you're going to need, and you'll be fine. So for instance, we tend to fill the tank about halfway, do our business, and then flush, and hold the pedal down for a little bit longer. When you're flushing your tank, do it several times. Just use lots and lots of water. Water is your friend. Water will keep you away from the dreaded poo pyramid that a lot of people are so afraid of. So do yourself a favor, save money. Don't buy the RV specific toilet paper. You can use your favorite brand, in our case Charmin. Just use lots of water.
Man, she's always hogging the bathroom. But now it's my turn, and we're going to talk about a similar topic, which is these chemicals that go in your septic tank, so your holding tanks in an RV. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the black tank. Now, I'm not saying that these chemicals are totally useless. That's not what I'm saying by any means. They have some purposes. But one of the things that they're billed as a lot of times is cleaning those sensors that are inside of your tank. And I can tell you from 4 years of experience living in this thing full time that the only thing that really helps those sensors is a good old-fashioned tank cleaning by a professional. And even then, those tank sensors are really only going to work for maybe a few weeks. And after that, they start getting just clogged up or covered up with just all of the crap that goes in your tank. And so for just a little bit of proof of that, I have been adding some chemicals just the past couple of times that I flushed my black tank. And I just want to show what this looks like right now, because right now we're showing about 2/3 full on the black tank, and I just emptied and flushed this thing, 2 days ago. So obviously those chemicals aren't doing much for the sensors, because I'm reading 2/3 full on that black tank right now. Now again, these things aren't totally useless, but we rarely use these things anymore just because I don't see any benefit to them being full-time RVers. Now granted, yes, I do have a bottle of it here. Normally we don't use these unless we're given free samples by someone. You know, a lot of times when you go to a rally or something like that, they'll give you free sample bottles of these things. And that's generally the only time that we really ever have any of these things on hand. This one, however, we did buy prior to dropping off our rig at Grand Design to get some work done on it. And that was only because we knew that it was going to be sitting in there for, well, we didn't know how long. It ended up being a month. And we wanted to get some chemicals in there to just help control the odor a little bit. And so in my opinion, that's really what these things are good for. If you do have an odor coming from your black tank, these chemicals can help out a little bit with that. But really, as far as tank maintenance goes, and especially keeping those sensors as clean as possible, there are two things that you want to do. Number one is you want to use as much water as possible. Having a lot of water in that tank is really what's going to help maintain the health of it long term. And then the second thing is getting that tank regularly cleaned. Now, if you're full-time RVers like us, I would recommend probably once a year getting the tanks cleaned by a professional. Now, if you're a seasonal RVer, you may not need to get it done that often, but that is really going to be the one key factor in the long-term health of that tank, keeping the sensors working as good as they can, and to just minimize the odors that are coming from that tank. And one of the reasons that we keep visiting or revisiting this topic is because we just see so many advertisements on it. Tank chemicals, it seems like they're being pushed down your throat every time you turn on YouTube and you're watching anything related to RVs. In our opinion, they are not always necessary. Again, if you have odors that you just can't get rid of, sure, try out some chemicals, but again, just using lots of water and letting that water do its job in those tanks is really the best thing that you can do to prevent those odors and to prevent unnecessary buildup inside of that tank. And hey, if you don't believe me, let's take it from an expert.
Basically, everybody should know that you do not have a septic tank in your RV. You have a holding tank. And all those store-bought chemicals like Happy Camper, Unique, Liquify, don't get me wrong, they do exactly what they say they're gonna do. They break down your solids. Problem is, they break down your solids as if it is a septic tank. So over time, you get this big, thick pancake mix across the bottom of your tank,
Yummy.
which causes a bunch of other problems. It changes the volume of the tank. It makes it easier for pyramids and clogs to form and build, and it just contains odors.
Now, what about things like toilet paper?
You can use any type of toilet paper you want. It does not have to be that type of toilet paper where you say the word water next to it and it dissolves. I personally use Charmin 2-ply Ultra Strong. All you got to do is you got to make sure you use enough water. Every time I use the bathroom, I at least finish filling up the bowl and flushing it again in order to get at least a half a gallon back into the tanks every time you flush.
And so next we're going to talk about camping memberships. These are things like Thousand Trails, the KOA Plan, Good Sam, Harvest Host, things like that. And the big thing to think about with these is you really need to know what type of a camper you are. So for instance, with the Thousand Trails, because it is so pricey, I mean, the zone pass starts at like $750 for one zone. And if you only go out a couple of times a year for maybe a couple of days at a time, you're not going to save any money. You're going to spend quite a bit of money to have this plan that you're rarely going to use. But if you're a full-timer and you're in those areas a lot, you could save money. So again, think about what kind of a camper you are. So just ask yourself, how do I camp? Is this going to benefit me? Is this a good use of my money? If not, pass it up. You can always revisit it again later.
All right, this next one's going to be really quick, and I think this one is 100% total gimmick or scam for most scenarios out there, and that is Wi-Fi boosters, right? So these things are marketed that they will increase the signal coming from the campground Wi-Fi. And they probably do exactly what they say they do. The problem with that is, number one, to begin with, campground Wi-Fi is generally terrible. So unless they've got a fiber connection coming in there, there's absolutely no way that they can support all of the internet traffic that's going around the campground. And so these things can boost that Wi-Fi signal all day long, but it can't do anything about all of that upstream traffic. So if you've got 200 campers out there or 200 devices out there trying to stream or use the internet via the campground's Wi-Fi. So if you're looking for an alternative to that, you can look at the mobile hotspots from all of the cell carriers. You can even get yourself a cell signal booster. Those are going to work way better than connecting to pretty much any campground Wi-Fi. And it has nothing to do with the signal strength. It just simply has to do with all of the people that are trying to share that same internet connection.
Finally, we're going to go ahead and cover extended warranties and roadside assistance plans. These are things that the RV dealership is really going to try to push when you're signing paperwork to take your new to you or brand new RV, and they can be very pricey and in some instances not cover what you think they're going to cover. So an extended warranty, think of it like a home warranty. They tend to be fairly pricey, $3,000 to about $10,000, and the price varies on the size of the rig, the complexity of the rig. Is it a bumper pole travel trailer, motor home? And they don't necessarily cover everything in the rig. So a lot of times, they'll cover the appliances, but they won't cover the roof. They're not going to cover cosmetic damage. If you accidentally punch a hole through your wall, that's typically not going to be covered. They're not going to cover wear and tear, and they're also not going to cover improper maintenance. So if you're not up there inspecting your roof frequently, and you do have roof coverage, and a leak develops, they may choose not to cover it because you haven't been up there doing your due diligence. A lot of RVers say that they have issues with claims either being completely denied or partially denied, and that's really where you need to look at the fine print, find out exactly what's covered, what's excluded, and what your role is in making sure that you get the coverage when you need it. Because again, if you're spending all this money, you want to make sure that you're getting something in return. So roadside assistance plans, however, are a completely different beast. These are similar to your regular auto roadside assistance, and they're roughly around $50 a year. And we highly recommend getting one because typically they cover towing, which can be really expensive for a travel trailer, fifth wheel motorhome, and your regular auto policy typically will not cover that for your RV. So the fact that that's covered can save you a lot of money and a lot of headache. Another thing that they cover is a flat tire. If you're not comfortable changing out a tire on the side of the road, or if you're in like a Class A motorhome where you can't personally do it on the side of the road, this can really be a lifesaver for you. And finally, a lot of times if you do need to get a mobile tech, they cover the service fee to get that tech to your location. And industry-wide, service techs tend to charge around $50 to $100 just to show up. So that's savings in your pocket. Even if you only need one service tech a year, you've pretty much paid for your roadside assistance plan. So to close that out, for either the extended warranty or the roadside assistance, just do your due diligence and read the fine print and make sure you know exactly what's covered, exactly what's not, and what you're going to have to spend in the moment that you need the service to determine whether or not you want to spend the money for either one of those plans.
Okay, now before we close out this whole video, we just want to talk about some things that we think that every RVer should have. Products that are not gimmicky. And I'm not talking about things that you absolutely need in your RV, like a septic hose and a water hose, those types of things. Those are all pretty basic things that I think everybody does have. What I want to talk about now is kind of just the things that we have in our RV that we couldn't live without, that aren't some of those just basic necessities. And so earlier I was talking about that air cleaner that goes straight into your air conditioner. And again, I don't really recommend one of those, but what I do recommend is having just portable air cleaners inside of your RV. You may only need one of them. We use two of them. We use two smaller ones. We've got one in the bedroom and we've got one out in the living room where Candace's office is set up. And these are both high efficiency air filters, so the HEPA filters, and they're pretty much going to be just as good as that one that goes inside of your air conditioner. But the bonus is you don't have to break into that air conditioner. You can move these things around wherever you want them. So if good quality air inside of your RV is something that's important, we recommend using these portable air cleaners instead of something that you've got to install permanently into your air conditioner. Next on our list here is a good quality dehumidifier. So you can see we've got a pretty big one here. RVs can become very, very humid on the inside, which leads to moisture buildup in a lot of places that you don't want moisture buildup inside of an RV. Now, you don't necessarily need anything this big. We bought this one because eventually we'll have a home base with something a little bit bigger that we're gonna be living in, and we wanted to make sure that this thing was big enough for that as well. So the key thing about dehumidifiers is that you definitely want to make sure you get one with a compressor. They make all of these little tiny dehumidifiers out there. They don't have a compressor in them, and so really all they're doing is just kind of passing air through them, and it really just doesn't take out a lot of moisture from the air. In our first RV, we had a little 23-foot bumper pull. We had one of those smaller ones with no compressor, and it essentially did nothing to dehumidify the air inside of that RV. So make sure you get one that's got a compressor, and make sure that it's good for, whatever the square footage of your rig is. I think ours is somewhere around 350, 375 square feet, something like that. So just make sure you get one that's big enough for your square footage. Next is one of these Valterra gate valves for your septic system. I absolutely would not own an RV without one of these. These things can be a lifesaver if one of your permanently installed valves fails or if it's leaking by. If that's the case, then you have this valve out here as a backup so that when you take the cap off of your septic line out here, you don't get a bunch of just nasty water coming out of there. It'll get caught by this Valterra valve. So again, we would highly recommend getting one of these Valterra valves so that you don't find yourself in one of those situations. And last but certainly not least, you definitely need a surge protector with an electrical management system on it. This is going to do two things for you. First, it's going to arrest any surges that may come through the electrical system in the campground, you know, from lightning strikes or wherever that's coming from. And then number two, it's going to monitor the quality of the power that's coming into your RV. So it's going to monitor things like high voltage conditions, low voltage conditions, missing grounds, missing neutrals, reversed hot and neutral, all of those different problems that a lot of campgrounds have out there. These EMS surge protectors will protect your RV and everything inside of it. I can't really show you ours right now because it's installed permanently and it's behind the fireplace now, but you can buy these things really in two different ways. You can buy the permanently mounted ones where you basically hook it straight up in line with your shore power coming into the RV, and then you have the kind that plug into the pedestal outside. I started out with the kind that plugs into the pedestal outside, and then we burned up one side of the cord and I just turned it into a permanently installed one and just hardwired it straight into my shore power line coming into the rig. But no matter which version you want to go with, you got to get yourself a surge protector with an EMS on it because there are far too many problems out there with campground electrical systems. And when you run into those campgrounds out there, you don't want to take the chance that you're going to destroy an air conditioner, a microwave, or anything else in your RV. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's video. And again, the purpose of this video was to really just get you thinking about all of those products and services that you see out there, that every time you turn on YouTube, somebody's trying to sell you one of these things. Just think about how you use your RV. How would you use these products? How does it affect the rest of your RV? How does it affect your RV life as a whole? And are these things really worth the money that you're going to spend on them? Just remember, you only have so much weight and so much space in these RVs to be carrying around a bunch of junk, and you just don't want to find yourself carrying around a bunch of stuff that you never use. So again, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and while you're down there, hit that bell button so that you are notified of all of our future videos. And until that next video, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.